What if Stevie Nicks' greatest secret wasn't in a song, but in the man she could never have, a bond she and Tom Petty kept hidden until the day he died, when Stevie fell for the sound. Before the world called her the Queen of Rock, Stevie Nicks was just a girl from Phoenix chasing a feeling, something she could never quite name. Fleetwood Mac had made her rich, famous, and exhausted. The fame was loud, but somewhere inside, she was still that quiet dreamer who scribbled lyrics about love, freedom, and heartbreak. Then, one night in 1978, she heard Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers on the radio for the first time. The song was Breakdown. His voice was rough, real, like it had lived through every lyric. Stevie stopped what she was doing, closed her eyes, and whispered, "That's what rock and roll should feel like." At that moment, something clicked. Tom's music was everything Fleetwood Mac wasn't: lean, unfiltered, unapologetic. No glitter, no lace, just guitars and truth. Stevie would later say it felt like coming home to a sound I didn't know I missed. By 1980, she was planning her first solo record, Belladonna. She told her producer Jimmy Iovine, "Get me Tom Petty. I don't just want a song, I want to be part of that world." Jimmy, already working with Petty, hesitated. Tom guarded his circle like family. He didn't do random duets, and he didn't care about Hollywood fame. To him, Stevie was the Fleetwood Mac lady, a pop figure from another planet. But Stevie was relentless. She admired Tom not as a fan, but as an equal. She studied his lyrics, his rhythm, the way he made simple words sound dangerous. "He's the kind of songwriter," she said, "who can tell you the truth without breaking your heart." When they finally met in Los Angeles, the room changed. Tom was quiet, guarded, but curious. Stevie, wearing her signature shawl, eyes full of fire, walked straight up and said, "You don't know it yet, but we're going to make music together." He laughed, not realizing she meant every word. In that instant, something unspoken formed between them. It wasn't romantic, not yet. It was creative gravity. They were opposites drawn by the same hunger, honesty through music. That night, after Tom left, Jimmy Iovine looked at Stevie and said, "You just met the one person who might change the way you write forever." He was right, because from that first meeting on, Stevie wasn't just chasing hits, she was chasing him. The sound, the truth, the mystery of Tom Petty became her new muse. And soon, that admiration would lead her into the one secret she'd keep for life. The secret in the basement. By 1981, Stevie Nicks was living two lives. On stage, she was the mystical frontwoman wrapped in chiffon. Off stage, she was a woman searching for meaning after years of chaos with Fleetwood Mac. Belladonna was supposed to be her escape, her first true solo voice. Enter Jimmy Iovine, the razor-sharp producer who had just helped Tom Petty craft Damn the Torpedoes. Jimmy believed Stevie could be the female answer to Petty's kind of rock. Honest, guitar-driven, and fearless. But that belief came with complications. Jimmy and Stevie were romantically involved, and Jimmy was still working closely with Petty. To Stevie, Tom Petty wasn't just another artist, he was the artist she wanted to stand beside. "I want a song from him," she told Jimmy one night. "Not a duet. A real Tom Petty song." Jimmy sighed. "He doesn't just give those away, Stevie. He protects his band like family." Still, fate had other plans. One late evening, Tom decided to stop by Jimmy's house to drop off tapes from a Heartbreakers session. Stevie happened to be there, hair up, barefoot, writing lyrics at the kitchen counter. The moment Jimmy saw Tom's headlights through the window, his stomach dropped. If Tom walked in and found Stevie there, it could ignite the very jealousy Jimmy feared. So he told her, quietly but firmly, "Go downstairs. Please, he can't see you." Stevie froze. "You want me to hide?" "Just this once," he begged. And that's how one of rock's greatest women ended up hiding in a producer's basement while her idol stood upstairs. She sat on the cold concrete steps, notebook in hand, listening to the muffled rhythm of Tom's voice above her. She could hear him laughing, talking about music, about chasing the perfect sound. And in that echo, something inside her shifted. "I could feel his energy through the floorboards," she later said. "It was like hearing the truth in someone's heartbeat." Upstairs, Jimmy played Petty a few rough tracks. Tom's tone turned serious. "Don't make her sound like me," he warned. "She's got her own thing." Let her stay that way. Jimmy agreed, but he knew, sooner or later, these two forces would collide. When Tom finally left, Stevie came back up, quiet, thoughtful. Jimmy expected anger, but she only smiled and said, "I just heard the man who understands rock better than anyone alive." That night didn't lead to a scandal, it led to inspiration. Stevie went home and wrote in her journal about the sound upstairs, a phrase that later shaped the mood of Belladonna. And though no one spoke of that evening again, it became the first thread in a hidden story. A story that would soon spill from the basement into the studio, where their voices would finally meet for real. The song that bound them forever. Sometimes fate waits quietly, then strikes with a song. For Stevie Nicks and Tom Petty, that song was "Stop Draggin' My Heart Around." It began as a throwaway. Tom and his guitarist Mike Campbell had written it for the Heartbreakers. It had Petty's fingerprints all over it, swaggering, sharp, defiant. But something about it didn't quite fit his album. He shelved it and moved on. Meanwhile, down the hall, Stevie was struggling to finish Belladonna. She had the voice, the vision, but not the anchor, the song that would define her independence outside Fleetwood Mac. And Jimmy Iovine, caught between his two stars, had an idea that could change all three of their lives. "Tom's got this track," Jimmy told her. "It's sitting there, waiting. I think you could make it your own." Stevie's eyes lit up. "Then let's do it." When Jimmy played her the demo, she didn't just listen, she felt it. The guitar riff rolled like thunder. The chorus hit like an argument she'd lived 1,000 times. "That's me," she whispered. "That's my story." Jimmy called Petty. Tom wasn't thrilled. He'd built the song with his band. It was personal. "She can sing," he said, "but it's my song." "Just come in," Jimmy pleaded. "Try it once." The next afternoon, Stevie walked into the studio. Tom was already there, guitar in hand, skeptical. She smiled shyly. "Hi, Heartbreaker." He smirked. "We'll see about that." They ran on the track. The first take was stiff, the second, better. Then, on the third, something shifted. Stevie leaned into the mic, eyes closed, and delivered the chorus like a confession. Tom joined in, not competing, but answering. Their voices tangled like a fight between lovers and a truce between friends. When the song ended, silence filled the room. Even the tape operator stopped breathing. Tom looked at her and said softly, "Damn, you get it?" Stevie grinned. "I told you we'd make magic." The mix was raw, electric, undeniable. They didn't just record a duet, they recorded chemistry. And when "Stop Draggin' My Heart Around" hit the airwaves that summer, it exploded. Radios played it non-stop. MTV couldn't get enough of their smoldering on-camera tension. Stevie's solo career was born that day. Tom's songwriting reached new audiences. But behind the fame, something deeper had started to grow. A quiet understanding, unspoken but unbreakable. Because that song wasn't just about two hearts clashing, it was the first time Stevie Nicks and Tom Petty stopped pretending they were only friends. The what if that haunted them. The success of "Stop Draggin' My Heart Around" changed everything. For Stevie Nicks, for Tom Petty, and for the delicate balance between them. Overnight, Stevie wasn't just the witchy poet from Fleetwood Mac. She was a rock star who could stand toe-to-toe with one of America's toughest songwriters. And Tom Petty, who had built his career on keeping outsiders at arm's length, suddenly found his world cracked open by her voice. They told interviewers they were just friends. But behind the smiles was tension, creative, emotional, magnetic. He admired her courage. She admired his restraint. He was California grit. She was desert magic. And together they became a contradiction neither could walk away from. In quiet moments between sessions, Stevie would linger in the studio long after the lights dimmed, scribbling lyrics while Tom packed up his guitar. Sometimes he'd look over her shoulder and laugh. "Another heartbreak song?" he'd tease. "Maybe," she'd answer. "Or maybe it's about you." Everyone around them could feel the charge. Jimmy Iovine kept his distance, pretending not to notice how often Stevie found reasons to stop by Heartbreakers rehearsals. She'd sit cross-legged on the floor, mouthing every lyric as Tom sang, eyes locked on him like she was learning a language only they spoke. One night, after a show in 1982, she told him, "If you ever need a girl in the band, I'm in. I'd leave Fleetwood Mac tomorrow. He chuckled, shaking his head. You belong to the world, Stevie. Don't give that up for me. But the truth was, part of her already had. Rumors started swirling that the two were more than collaborators. They denied it, of course, and maybe that denial kept the magic alive. Because the moment they admitted it, the spell would have broken. Still, in every photo, every rehearsal clip, you can see it. The way her eyes follow him, the way he tilts his head when she speaks. It wasn't romance in the tabloid sense. It was something rarer, the ache of two artists who found in each other what the rest of the world could never understand. And as the years rolled on, that silent what if trailed them, like a melody neither could stop humming. Distance, respect, and a promise. As the 80s burned on, life pulled them in different directions. Fleetwood Mac was back on tour, the tension as thick as ever. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers were on the road too, breaking records and burning out under the spotlight. For a while, the two barely saw each other, but even apart, they stayed connected in ways no one saw. Stevie kept a small framed photo of Tom in her dressing room. He carried a locket she'd given him, a silver heart engraved with one word, forever. It wasn't romantic jewelry, it was a vow. A quiet reminder that, no matter how far their lives drifted, their music was their common heartbeat. Still, distance breeds silence, and silence can hurt. By 1985, rumors were swirling again, that Tom had grown cold, that Stevie's lifestyle had become too chaotic. Drugs, exhaustion, and the whirlwind of fame began to change her. Friends say she'd stare at old photos from the Belladonna sessions and whisper, "He grounded me." Tom, meanwhile, was fighting his own demons, lawsuits, addiction, and the crushing pressure to keep his band alive. When journalists asked about Stevie, he'd smile politely and deflect. She's doing her thing. She's always been tough. Behind the curtain, though, things weren't simple. They had argued, quietly, privately. Tom hated the excesses that came with her fame. Stevie hated how he shut her out when she reached for help. It wasn't a breakup, it was heartbreak without the romance. Then came the Insider Sessions, another collaboration, another late-night recording, where they tried to find each other again through music. This time the song was smaller, sadder, and achingly real. When Stevie sang the line, "You're the keeper of my heart," Tom looked down, pretending to tune his guitar. Because everyone in the room knew, she wasn't acting. When the track ended, there was no applause, just silence. The kind of silence that only happens when two people realize they've said everything they can without speaking the truth aloud. Years later, when asked what he thought of her, Tom said simply, "Stevie, she's family, always will be." And Stevie, through tears, told Rolling Stone, "Tom taught me how to protect my heart, even when it breaks. It wasn't a love affair, it was a promise, and it would outlast them both." The secret that died with him. October 2nd, 2017. The news broke before dawn. Tom Petty was gone. A heart attack, sudden and cruel, just days after finishing a 40th anniversary tour with the Heartbreakers. The world froze. But no one felt the silence more deeply than Stevie Nicks. She had spoken to him only weeks before. They'd joked about meeting up in LA, maybe writing one last song together. He told her he was tired but happy. "Don't worry about me, Stevie," he'd said. "I'm good, really good." When she got the call, she didn't believe it. She said later it felt like a light had gone out that she didn't even realize was keeping her alive. For days she didn't leave her house. Friends brought flowers, food, notes. But nothing filled the hole. Stevie had lost one of the only people who had ever seen her clearly, without the myth, the makeup, or the magic. At her next show, she stood beneath a single spotlight and dedicated Landslide to him. Her voice cracked halfway through. "I loved him," she said quietly to the crowd. "Not like you think, but maybe even deeper." It was the closest she ever came to telling the truth. In interviews that followed, she spoke about Tom like someone recalling a dream they didn't want to wake from. "Tom was my big brother, my teacher, my mirror. He taught me how to be tough without losing the poetry." But behind those words was something softer, a grief that felt unfinished. At his memorial, Stevie placed a single white rose on his guitar case and whispered something no one could hear. Later, someone asked what she'd said. She smiled sadly. "That's between me and Tom, and maybe that's how they wanted it, No grand confessions, no tell-all endings. Just two souls who shared a secret the world could only guess at. A love expressed through harmony, not headlines. Because when Tom Petty died, the music world lost a hero. But Stevie Nicks lost the one man who never asked her to be anyone but herself. And so, in every concert she plays, every lyric she breathes, there's still a trace of him. A ghost woven into the melody. The secret may have died with him, but the song never will. Stevie Nicks and Tom Petty never confessed their secret. They sang it. Every lyric, every glance, every harmony between them was a truth the world could only guess. And maybe that's why their story still haunts us. Because the real love stories aren't always the loud ones. They're the quiet ones, the ones written between the notes. If you felt this story, hit subscribe. Because here on Backstage Melody, every legend leaves behind a song, and every song hides a secret worth hearing. Tell me in the comments -- do you think Stevie ever told Tom how she really felt?